Good evening and welcome to Prime Business with me, Beverly Broohm. Ghana's economy grew at the slowest pace in 2 years in the third quarter of 2021, according to data from the Ghana Statistical Service. Accordingly, the economy expanded by 2.9% in the third quarter of 2022. Now, this is lower than the 4.7 gross domestic product GDP recorded in the second quarter of 2022. The slow growth in industry impacted heavily on the overall growth rate. Now, agriculture, however, recorded the highest GDP of 4.6%, whilst the services sector registered a growth rate of 3.9%. Here's more.
The agricultural sector was the best performer with rate of 4.6% for the period after recording a strong growth in fishing and livestock. This is followed by the services sector with 3.9%. Manufacturing recorded a contraction to slow the overall growth rate, which is a significant drop in the rate for the last quarter. Government statistician Professor Samuel Kobna Inim explains.
So we're recording a decline from 6.5% between third quarter 2020 and third quarter 2021 to 2.9% for the period third quarter 2021 and third quarter 2022. From a non-oil perspective, we recorded a growth rate of 3.6% for the period third quarter 2022, referencing third quarter 2021. This shows a sharp decline for the rate that was recorded for the third quarter of 2021, which stood at 8.2 growth rate between third quarter 2020 and third quarter 2021, and for the third quarter 2022, it declined to 3.6%.
He also disclosed that this is the lowest growth rate to be recorded in the economy since the country recovered from the COVID-19 lockdown.
We compare this historically from the last quarter of our experience during the COVID period, and we have observed that this is the least growth that we've recorded since the economy bounced back after the COVID effect. So since 2020 quarter 4, the economy has consistently grown from 4.3% from an oil perspective and 5.7% from a non-oil perspective. This peaked to the third quarter of 2021, when from an oil perspective, the economy grew by 6.5%, and from a non-oil perspective, the economy grew by 8.2%. Comparing it with the current rate of 2.9% oil GDP and 3.6% non-oil GDP, this is the lowest growth rate that we've recorded in the last 8 quarters after the economy had bounced back following the COVID-19 effect.
In the same period of 2021, the growth rate was 6.5%.
Now, Director for the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, ISE, at the University of Ghana, Professor Peter Quartey, is calling on government to review its approach in dealing with issues confronting the country's foreign exchange market. This, according to him, is key to addressing the slow rate of the industrial sector of the economy. He spoke earlier on the marketplace.
This is reflecting in the producer price inflation as well. It's gone up. But how do we get out of this? The exchange rate is a major factor. If we are able to stabilize the exchange rate, that can also translate into lower fuel costs, lower energy costs, lower cost of production. Workers will not ask for higher wages if we are able to stabilize inflation. Inflation currently is about 50% thereabout. So unless we are able to ensure macro stability, ensure that some of the macro indicators are stable, this is likely to occur. So let's work on the exchange rate again and ensure that it's relatively stable compared to where we saw between June and September and October. And once the exchange rate depreciates, starts fluctuating, then it affects planning, it affects cost of imports, it affects cost of production. So going forward, I mean the news about debt restructuring, external debt restructuring and all that, is investors feed on some of this information and react. There's been a lot of speculative activities. That is why the Cedi tumbled so quickly. The dollar tumbled so quickly when the IMF, was announced, despite the other policies that have been pursued by the Bank of Ghana and the government. But I think there's a lot of speculative activities as well. So If we have a stable environment, stable outlook, people think that going into 2021, we'll be able to sign on to an IMF program and get more inflows, and that we're going to ensure macro stability, etc. Then we're likely to see a stable exchange rate regime, and the cedi will not depreciate as quickly as it did in the months of September to November.
Now, the Ghana cedi has returned to its depreciation trajectory 2 days after the government announced a suspension of interest payments to some of its external creditors. Right after the announcement of a domestic exchange program by the government, the cedi strengthened in value consistently for 2 weeks against the US dollar. However, the local currency, according to Joy Business checks at some forex bureaus, is going for 12 cedis 20 pesos to 1 American greenback on the foreign market. Some could also be said about the cedi's performance to other major foreign currencies. If the trend continues, the recent gains, which have led to a reduction in prices of petroleum products and other goods on the market, could be reversed. Meanwhile, senior finance lecturer at the University of Cape Coast, Seriam Kawo, has stated that the slow depreciation of the cedi is likely to derail investor confidence. According to him, foreign investors may struggle to pay off their debts due to the gains made by the local currency against other currencies.
The market basically responds to information, and the information on the foreign debt exchange gives our investors the notion that it's going to be very hard to pay their debts when they fall due. Eventually, we've been downgraded by S&P to a selective default rate, which means that these foreign investors who one way or the other trade in the cedi will not have much confidence in the amounts that they bring into the country for trading. And hence, we see this particular response on the market of the cedi. There is fears that if I bring more dollars to trade with the country, I might lose more because the one that I have with the country, they are not able to pay me as we speak because they have announced a debt servicing kind of thing that is a default, and for that matter, it becomes very difficult to trade with the country, especially when this thing came as a shock to some of them when they have not been consulted. The consensus building has not been that much. This is the kind of response that we get from the market.
Away from the cedi, most traders in the Kantamanto market here in Accra have disclosed to Joy Business that they cannot reduce prices of their goods despite recent gains in the value of the cedi to the dollar. According to them, they bought the goods between 13 and 14 cedis to 1 US dollar, and therefore it will take some time before the prices of their wares will go down. This comes after President of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, Dr. Joseph Obeng, said some traders of the association have started reducing prices of goods at the markets, but the traders in the Kantamanto market disagree.
Most traders in Kantamanto market here in Accra have disclosed to Joy Business that they cannot reduce prices of goods despite the recent gain in value of the cedi to the dollar. According to them, they bought the goods between 13 and 14 cedis to 1 US dollar, and therefore it would take some time before prices of their wares will go down. This is coming after President of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, Dr. Joseph Obeng, said some members of the association have started reducing prices of goods at the markets. But the traders in the Kantamanto market disagrees.
The dollar has come down though, but you know, as we went for the goods, dollar was somewhere 13 cedi, 14 cedis. So we have to wait to sell the old stuffs in the shop before we can adjust to the 5 cedis.
Yeah, we are selling as old stock. That is 15 cedis to equivalent to $1. Okay. Yeah, until that one finished, that is when you can import the new goods. That is.
Some of the traders also claimed that consumers were not shopping in this festive season as compared to last year.
People are not buying, but we cannot compare it to last year because prices of products have become very expensive and there is no money. Items which were sold for 2 cedis to 5 cedis is now 10 cedis to 15 cedis.
By last year, no,
Last year was better, but this year hasn't been good because of the Cedi depreciation to the dollar. Business is slow this year.
Meanwhile, some customers are pleading with the traders to reduce their prices of their goods to conform with the recent gains in the Cedi to the dollar.
The increase is too much. I see the dollar has come down, but still, these are high, and we are suffering. The people in the country, we are suffering. So we are pleading with the government to come and check things in the market because how they are increasing the things is too much. We can't buy. So immediately the dollar come down, they should reduce the things.
For now, one cannot tell whether the Cedi will continue with its recent gains or otherwise. From the Katamanto market, Akofa Atipo reports read to you.
Now, some retailers of consumer goods in Kumasi claim they have little to do in calls for reduction in prices of goods on the market. They are pointing to importers, suppliers, and manufacturers for maintaining old and high prices. Lava Firm's Clinton Yeboah has more in the following report.
Many stakeholders have called on traders to reduce the prices of commodities following recent economic gains. Is that the case here in Central Market in Kumasi? Consumers have anticipated the appreciation of Cedi against major international currencies, and reduction in fuel prices will lead to price reduction in goods. The Ghana Cedi has accumulatively gained approximately 33.6% value against the US dollar in December alone. Brent crude has fallen below $80 for the first time since January, resulting in a reduction in fuel price at the local pump, and subsequently affecting a 15.7% reduction in transportation fares. These factors are seeming determinants of the prices of goods and services for traders and the Ghana business community. However, traders have declined calls by President Akufo-Addo and regulatory bodies like the Ghana Union of Trade Association to reduce the prices of goods and services to reflect the new reality. Akwesi Agyemang, a wholesaler of provisions in Kumasi, laments he cannot reduce the prices of his goods because suppliers are operating with old prices.
But suppliers, it's reflective. We have 400 cities, 80 cities. And it's a phenomenon for us, but wholesale for free. What I say to price to change you, I see. It's what to say. Wholesale the best our price. Let's reflect to one. No, it's price to register.
Nanadra Botri, a retailer of groceries, says reducing prices of her goods will put her out of business. Makisiwa says although she has slashed the prices of her items, she still has to deal with other living expenses. She says patronage has also been affected as patrons are willing to buy only less expensive items.
Oh yes, way. But 70 cities. My test was about 550. My baby, I make 130 cities. And you are more by say all the board mamma no. My son so I'm not met to mamma met me at home. Up to the Nipan or my. Oh, boy, baby, sir, to a baby, I know what talk. Oh, baby, sir, oh, baby, sir, oh, boy, no call.
Reporting from Kumasi, Clinton Yeboah.
Now, the chairman of Parliamentary Select Committee for Trade, Industry and Tourism Honorable Carlos Kingsley Ahinkwa has urged Ghanaian entrepreneurs and investors to engage in more local investments and businesses to support the development of the country. He said this at the media launch of the Black History Festival 2023 as a factor to enhance appreciation of the Ghanaian currency.
The Black History Festival is celebrated to strengthen ties between the United States of America and Africa. It is also a celebration that gives opportunity to commemorate the Black History Month, which is annually celebrated by the people of the USA in celebrating the achievements, heritage, and historical contributions of people of African origin. Speaking at the media launch of the festival held in Accra, member of the Parliamentary Select on Trade, Industry and Tourism, Honorable Carlos Ahinkwa, advised entrepreneurs and investors to focus on promoting their wares and investments in the local sectors to enhance Ghana's economic growth.
I'd like to also mention that it's time that we do a lot of local investments. It's time that local entrepreneurs decide that they bury their monies here in the ground, so that at least we could rely on local profits, where the profits will stay in Ghana and will not have to be repatriated out.
He further admonished exporters and Ghanaians at large to be more innovative and creative in their production for exports to the international market.
It's time for us to enter into the creative realm to see how we can propel our very position with the innovations that the youth of this country can provide. Regard. When you are going to the US in February, amongst the people or amongst the products that you are going to showcase, take some creativity there. Think about robotics. Think about something in the medical field. Think about something that would sell Ghana over and above the usual Nkuto and, of course, the Alata seminars that we always showcase.
On his part, the coordinator of the Black History Festival, Stephen Selassie Isuo, also shared expectation ahead of the 2023 edition of the festival.
And with regards to this edition, our objective is to ensure that US and Africa don't only trade, but they have a special attention to policies that exist. Number one. Number two, look for strategic opportunities to strengthen these ties to ensure that not only do we trade, but we also take advantage of our investment opportunities, open market opportunities, whilst looking at how we could strengthen our cultural values, look at our heritage, and also give a special attention to our history.
Let's do some more stories now. CPEX Africa says it is poised to help in cutting down operational costs in the hospitality and food industry through packaging services. According to team lead for CPEX Africa, Derek Safo, the company will reduce environmental waste and empower women within the sector. He spoke to Joy Business at the launch of its packaging services.
CPEX is a packaging service solution that leverages an app to connect restaurants, vendors to users seeking sustainable packaging. Their platform allows you to get food delivery from your favorite restaurant in reusable smart packs that are great for your wallet and environment. Speaking to Joy Business, team lead Derek Safo said the company will take its operations to other parts of the country.
Our goal is to eliminate single-use plastic packages from the food delivery chain in Ghana to make our environment clean and green. The reason why we started CPEX is the fact that we realized that majority of individuals, around 1.6 million people, use styrofoams or single-use plastics on a daily basis, just in Accra alone. And that constitutes about 40% of single-use plastics entering into our marine ecospace, polluting it. Now, at the end tail, there are women who live around the shore, who lived on the sea. And so when these plastic waste enters into our drainage system and then eventually into our ocean, it pollutes them and affects their livelihood. And so the idea of CPEX is to eliminate single-use plastic on our food value chain completely. So what we do is that for a restaurant, we have realized they spend so much money on single-use plastic packaging. So what we are doing for them as CPEX is that we are taking care of all their packaging needs, from the primary package, the food will go inside, the cutlery, the pouch, that will be carried from the restaurant to the user. And they are paying a fraction of the amount they spend on single-use plastic packages at the moment. And so SPEC seeks to reduce environmental waste, but most importantly, cut down costs for people in the hospitality and food industry.
Environmental law lecturer at the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, Dr. John Darkon said there's the need for government to engage private sector to support this initiative.
An initiative like this, and that is why I believe that SPECS is a company that we must promote. An initiative like this that seeks to take away plastic waste and plastics generally out of the system is very laudable and an initiative that government must help. I think that is what is happening here. So government's main thing is to prevent it. So government will bring taxes, and so you're looking at the carrot and stick approach. Government is trying to look at taxes to, as it were, bring the cost and limit the use of plastic. What the private sector is doing is to ensure that you don't even have to use the plastic at all. So the private sector is bringing reusable products like SPECS product that we just launched.
Smart Pack Exchange as a packaging service solution has been developed as an innovative means of eradicating single-use plastic packaging on our food delivery value chain.
And that's all for business. We have more business when you log on to myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Beverly Broohm. Have a good evening.